But what they've done is they've taught people the word inflation, right? Yeah. Most people who would have never used that word ever in their lives are using it now because they've been taught it.
Welcome to this week's Wacky Moments of Leftist Extremism. They can't talk about the economy, crime, the border, or any real issues, so the leftist media only has one talking point to parrot during these midterm election times. Biden's argument that if you don't vote leftist Democrat, it'll be the end of democracy. Of course, they never fact-check that claim. They just roll with it.
President Biden saying democracy is on the ballot on Tuesday.
President Biden has very much been wanting to laying out the stakes for what is coming up in these midterms. He says this is a struggle for the very soul of America and that democracy is on this ballot for everyone in this country.
It was a midterm closing argument and an urgent warning about the future of democracy as we know it.
In a primetime address, President Biden warns democracy itself is on the ballot and in peril next Tuesday.
With Republicans gaining momentum, President Biden is intensifying his focus on an issue he thinks can energize the Democratic base, threats to democracy. It is a theme he's talked about since his campaign, but overnight, the president calling the midterms a defining moment. But Republicans and even many Democrats say with the economy ranking as the top issue, the impact may be minimal.
How unfortunate that people are feeling the reality of the economy. They're just not buying into this made-up end of democracy that the DNC media keeps trying to sell, simply by parroting Biden.
Tonight, President Biden is calling on all Americans to stand up to protect our democracy amid the threats that election deniers pose to the voting process.
Election deniers and conspiracy theorists like, say, Hillary Clinton?
I'm here to highlight something that is keeping me up at night. I know we're all focused on the 2022 midterm elections, and they are incredibly important. But we also have to look ahead, because you know what? Our opponents certainly are. Right-wing extremists already have a plan to literally steal the next presidential election.
ABC, NBC, PBS, NPR, even MSNBC, they can't seem to find or cover that recent video released from Hillary. Trump wasn't illegitimate President Clinton. Now, I don't know why. I could find the video with ease, but only thing the leftist media could seem to find this week was ways to milk the heinous attack on Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul, for all it's worth to push their agenda.
The central political headline of this story: that years of Republican propaganda and Trump-fueled fascism led 42-year-old David DePape to break into Nancy Pelosi's San Francisco home, seemingly with the intent to harm her.
Of course, it was all Trump's fault, not the fault of the alien-human hybrids that DePape blogged about, or his nudist activism, hemp jewelry making influences of his past. It's amazing how the leftist media doesn't feel the need to inform viewers of those facts, but they do want to do anything they can just to tie it to Trump.
Law enforcement officials now telling ABC News the suspect had zip ties and duct tape with him when breaking into the Pelosi's home. And while no specific motive has been identified, the circumstances are eerily similar to the January 6th attack, some bringing zip ties into the Capitol.
But not at all like the armed individual with zip ties that was found outside Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh's house. In fact, the MRC examined the first 5 days of the Pelosi attack, and we found that the Pelosi coverage was 11 times more than the amount of coverage that the major broadcast networks gave over the same period to the attempted assassination of Kavanaugh. Now, one would almost think the media treats Republicans as lesser beings, almost like insects.
But what's also surprising to me is the abortion issue. I read a poll just yesterday that white Republican suburban women are now going to vote Republican.
Why?
It's almost like roaches voting for Raid.
Sonny Hostin of The View claims Republican women voting Republican against abortion are like roaches voting for Raid.
White Republican suburban women are now going to vote Republican.
Why?
It's almost like roaches voting for Raid.
Of course, Raid kills bugs and abortion kills babies, but Hostin doesn't want to see that connection. Her mind is like a dark, dark alley. You wouldn't want to wander in there alone. The leftist media just can't celebrate dead babies enough.
This may look like your standard long-haul RV, but step on board and it's a fully operational medical facility. or as these Planned Parenthood employees call it, an act of activism.
It looks very much like a regular brick and mortar health center for us.
But you can feel the fact that we're not on.
Yes.
We're not in a building.
It is a little more bouncy.
Dr. Colleen McNicholas is the chief medical officer at Planned Parenthood of St. Louis. She says the mobile clinic will be parked in Illinois near the border with Missouri to make abortions easier to access from out of state.
You know, I thought CBS hated putting people on mobile transports for political purposes.
The Republican governors of Florida, Texas, and Arizona, who've sent nearly 12,000 migrants to Democratic strongholds in the past 5 months.
Instead of working with us on solutions, Republicans are playing politics with human beings, using them as props.
The leftist mind, you won't find a lot of brightness in there.
I have actually never heard a person who isn't an economist or works on CNBC. I used to do CNBC a lot as a guest. I actually used to do Larry Kudlow's show all the time, a couple times a week. And the only people I ever heard here use the word inflation are journalists and economists, right? So that is not part of the normal lexicon of the way people talk. So it's interesting that Republicans are doing something they don't normally do, right? Which is not use the common tongue, right? Not use just common English to sort of do on their campaigns like they're doing with crime. But what they've done is they've taught people the word inflation, right? Yeah. Most people who would have never used that word ever in their lives are using it now because they've been taught it.
I mean, no normal people use that word inflation before those evil, evil Republicans.
But what they've done is they've taught people the word inflation, right? Yeah. Most people who would have never used that word ever in their lives are using it now because they've been taught it.
Pro-education and economics. Darn those Republicans, what a conspiracy.
And the only people I ever heard here use the word inflation are journalists and economists.
Seems Joy's argument is unless people are stone stupid, they won't vote for leftists, but there might be something to that idea. I'm Eric Shiner from MRC-TV, asking you to take some time and brighten your day. Check out the great gear at the MRC Store, visit the MRC homepage, and make a donation to help keep videos like this coming. Be sure to check out MRCTV.org for the latest information and entertainment and videos from the whole crew. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to these videos on the platforms to let you see us. We'll be back next week with all the media meltdowns from the midterms. It could be quite delicious. Hope you'll join us.